All right, Joe Mitchell, founder and president of Run GenZ. How you doing today, Joe?
Good. It's good to be here, Austin. Thanks for inviting me.
A little bit of different weather out here in the desert compared to Iowa, huh?
Yeah, and I was telling folks that it's probably comparable because of the humidity, but that's not necessarily true. Because when it's 110 degrees and I was golfing yesterday, it was like hit a bit different than 85 and humid. So
it's a real 110. We like to call it a dry heat out here.
Yeah. I mean, I was still sweating a whole bunch, right? So, but it's been good. I love Arizona. I love the South. I tell folks that negative 10 in the winter in Iowa would much rather be anywhere but that, right? So it's good to be down here where I can, even here in the summer. But yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Well, absolutely. We appreciate you coming out, having a little chat with us today. So tell me, Run GenZ, fascinating 501c4 organization. You guys are nationally recognized right now as sort of the leader in recruiting young candidates. Where'd you come up with the idea, and what was kind of the history behind it?
Of course. So, obviously I'm a state representative in Iowa that we talked about before. Obviously I got elected at a fairly young age. I got elected at the age of 21. I'm 24 now, serving my second term in the Iowa House. And so what happened was, shortly after I got elected, I realized there's not a ton of young people represented in our government, right? Both on the state or the local level. And so I saw a problem with that. And so I started thinking, how can a number one network with other younger legislators my age be able to come up with an idea to recruit more young people to run for state and local office. And that's when I started putting on paper the idea of Run GenZ. And so our mission is to empower, encourage, and recruit the next generation of conservative leaders across the country to run for office, for city council, for school board, for state legislative seats across this country. We have about 30 elected officials now in our coalition that have been helping out with this effort, ready to mentor this next generation of leaders across our country. And so that's kind of a 30,000 foot view of how it sprung. On the federal level, they can't get anything done, right? There's so much gridlock. But on the state and local level, for the most part, you can make change a lot quicker than if you're elected to Congress or to a national sort of office.
No, and that's a really important point, is local elections are so vital to local communities. There's so many things that have to do with water, wastewater, city utilities, things like that, and a lot of voting power and sort of opinions that come from people who are elected in that local office. So congratulations on starting this organization since when? July of last year?
Yeah, so July of last year is when we filed. We announced it in August of last year, and we had a few, we had a little bit of a pilot program going on. We had 4 candidates that we're working with. They'd already, been filed, and we're running the general. But really since November, since post-election, I've been able to bring on full-time executive director, some interns. We've really been able to ramp up our efforts and our initiative to really do what our mission set out to do, which is recruit these young people to run. And so we've been, attending conferences all around the U.S. To help meet new young leaders that are really, excited about running for office and making a difference.
That's phenomenal. Joe, there's got to be a backstory here. Obviously, you ran for office yourself. You know what it takes to be a candidate, run for office, run that campaign, which I used to work in campaigns myself. I ran a lot of local races, specifically for city council members. And in my mind, they're just as tough as a legislative and sometimes a congressional race. And I think giving young people those resources and skill sets to give that stump speech at a local community center or to go and speak at a roundtable meeting with local leaders is really important and vital. When you were running for office, did you see that there was a clear need for something like Run GenZ? And is that why you started it, or maybe it's something else?
Yeah. I started working at the Capitol when I was 17. And I started working there through something called the PAGE program, which is a program for high school seniors or juniors to go up there the second half of their senior year and to work at the Capitol and directly network with state legislators and lawmakers and staff and other folks there, and actually be able to have an internship, directly working with, the state government. And so that was my first formal introduction into politics, but I immediately fell in love with the process and, learning that, this place, the Iowa Capitol, has the ability to change people's lives for the better. And so after that, I went to Drake University in Des Moines, where I got my bachelor's degree in business administration. And then throughout my time at Drake, though, I was working at the Capitol in the state Senate as a legislative clerk, which is almost like a secretary. Each state legislator has a clerk that keeps track of their schedule and does constituent services. Then I worked in the governor's office as an intern, worked for Senator Joni Ernst in D.C. as an intern, and then my junior year, I was working as an intern for a multi-client lobbyist. And actually, I thought I was going to graduate early and become a lobbyist for one of the business industries. And so what happened, though, was my junior year, about a month into session, my predecessor of 24 years, Dave Heaton, decided to retire. And so, he'd been serving longer than I'd been alive. And at that point, I had a decision to make, right?
Natural opportunity.
Well, my thing was, how, again, can I affect the best and most effective change in my community? And that's obviously by electing or by representing my constituents, back home that, I've been trying to help for years by, serving in different capacities at the Capitol. And I thought, this is my chance to potentially run. And if I don't run now, I might be another 20 years, right? And so at that point, I had an initial conversation with Representative Heaton, and he was now a good friend and a mentor. But at the time, he said, Joe, you're too young, you're too inexperienced, and you need more, life lessons, right? You need to be able to have a wife and kids before you run for something like this. And so obviously, against his better judgment, I still decided to run. And but I had multiple other people that encouraged me to run and to do this, because they said, what do you have to lose, right? And so I ultimately decided to jump into the primary. I had a 4-way primary, ran against people that were twice my age, that had more, name recognition, that had businesses across my district, and that, had been involved in more stuff. But I did the work, right? I knocked on thousands of doors, made hundreds of phone calls across to constituents across my district, and won my primary by 100 votes.
The discouragement I'm hearing is the past elected leader told you needed to have a wife and kids in order to run for office.
Yeah.
Now, more than ever before, the boomer generation, they're in their 60s and 70s now, and people who are Gen Z and millennials, they're not having kids as often as boomers were. They're also not getting married as earlier in life as they used to.
Yeah.
So do you think that is a roadblock for a lot of other people before running into office?
Yeah.
Are they encountering that stigma of, well, you're not married and you don't have kids, so you shouldn't run?
Well, exactly. And so, that's why I started thinking of this concept, because I said, I knew if there was folks my age, right, like myself, that were able to encourage more young people to say, hey, if I'm able to do it, you can do it too. And so, that's where a motto kind of sprung out of, was being able to just empower young people by telling our stories, right? Telling our stories right here. Somebody watching, if you are thinking about running for office, you can do it, and you shouldn't let your age intimidate you into not doing that, right? And so that's really from a pure standpoint where this all kind of came out of, was I realized that I wasn't a 4.0 student, right? I'm not an outlier in any way. I decided to put my name on the ballot and go out there and do the hard work, and it paid off. And I was able to do that because I had the time and energy as a 21-year-old to be able to do that.
When you decided to file and run, what was the response you got from your mom and dad?
So they told me not to do it because they said, you need to finish college first because we're paying for it, right?
Yeah.
So they said, that was the most important thing. But I told them, I said, I can do this, simultaneously at the same time. And my dad said, well, how does that work? And I said, well, I'll show you, right? And so I ended up, getting elected in November of 2018, graduating college in December of 2018, and then, getting sworn in January 2019 to the Iowa House. But again, they still had faith in me, obviously, and they believed I, had it in me to do it. I don't know if they necessarily thought I was going to win, but they knew I would give them my all.
No, that's great. And when you make a decision to jump out of something that's comfortable for you and in something that's a little bit risky, were there risks you considered now being in office and deciding, well, I'm going to run a 501c4 as well, and encourage other candidates who think like me to run for office, and I'm going to train them? Yeah. Did you think that would have a negative impact from your constituency?
I never thought it would have a negative impact. I thought it might have a positive impact to let people know that I'm not complacent, right? Obviously, I didn't run at 21 to just, stay there, forever and to just, not, try to make a difference. But really, again, what I had in mind with this is, I shouldn't be the only person that was 21 that was elected, across the country that year, right? This needs to be a ripple effect to help change this country and to help get better representation of younger folks in government across the country, because right now we're grossly underrepresented, right? And so the only way to be able to get that message out is to be able to have a platform, to have an organization like this, which says, hey, we have this very large coalition of young elected officials. We're here to help you.
And provide them the resources they need to get into office.
To do so, yeah.
And obviously you come from two qualified professionals, your parents. Although they didn't go to college, they still started this business out of their garage, like so many other American families. Looking at that, what made you decide to still attend a 4-year university?
Yeah.
Because I would think, did you have that conversation with your parents of, maybe don't go to college and try a different route? Or
so obviously, as you just said, neither one of my folks had went to college, but they saw the importance of getting an education. But also, when they were growing up, if you couldn't afford to go to college, you didn't go to college, right? And coming from a working class, family, they just didn't have the means to do so. But they were able to put money away into a 529 plan for myself and my brothers to be able to go to college. And so they told us that they think it's important for us to get a degree, especially since we weren't going to have to acquire a bunch of debt to do so. And so they're very encouraging of us going to college and almost telling us we had to go to college, and that was going to be something that was more than less mandatory, because they were able to give us the ability to do so. It was an opportunity that they didn't have growing up because they didn't have the money to do so.
And these other candidates that run Gen Z as training, do you find a lot of them have the same opinion of, I need to go to college first before running for office? Or, because one thing that a lot of people would like to see more in America is having people from the trades run from office. We're talking about the plumbers, welders, electricians of the world. They're just as capable.
Yeah.
Do you have those type of candidates involved with you?
Yeah, and let me be clear. I don't think 4-year college is for everyone, right? Now you see the push. They think everyone should get a master's degree now, or go to law school, or get an advanced degree.
Of course.
Which I think is crap. I think everyone has a different path that they should go down. Now, I do think, majority of people probably should get something above a high school degree, whether that's going to trade school or just community college.
Professional training, rather.
Professional training, but
high school graduation.
And something that's affordable for you, right? I mean, again, we've had this narrative that, you had to acquire, tens of thousands of dollars worth of debt to be successful, which is just utterly false. But we've had, folks across the spectrum, we've had 16-year-olds apply. To our website that want to run for office, and that we say, normally you have to, wait 2 years to do so. But I ran when I was in college. I was 20. I was a junior in college, and so, we're very supportive of folks, running, when they get out of high school, or when they're in college, or just after college. We've had, one of my co-founders, Caleb Hanna. He ran when he was 17 for the state delegate position in West Virginia. He got elected at 18. And now, Caleb is the youngest African American ever elected to a state office in American history. Getting elected to the state house in West Virginia at 18, right? And so we have folks from all across different walks of life that have ran at 18, that have ran at 22, that have ran at 28. But we've been able to put together this diverse coalition of folks that have had all these different experiences to be able to show these other young people that are interested in running for office that, hey, you can do this too.
I love hearing that, especially because kind of a cliche or a coined phrase that's been going on in a lot of households in America, and specifically in businesses and also major foundations who are raising money for charity, is our nation is about to encounter the largest transition of wealth in history. Now, I also think there's an argument to be made that we're about to encounter the largest transition of political power in American history. A lot of our politicians, they're aging. They're getting to the point in their lives where they need to retire and they need to get out of office. And I see Run Gen Z as that group that is sort of replenishing the political power in America. No matter which side of the aisle you stand on, it's going to happen no matter what. So with your organization, you mentioned a 16-year-old. Are you guys targeting high school students as well, or are they naturally having an attraction to Run Gen Z?
Yeah, so I would say naturally the groups that we're partnering with, for instance, Turning Point USA, being one of them, they have, activists as young as 14 that are involved in an organization that have started, high school chapters. And so, naturally, we've had those folks that have applied to our website. We had a young gal in California that was 16. She went and run for Secretary of State.
Wow.
And then it was funny because, so my executive director, Mason, he says, do you know what a Secretary of State does? And then he was like, she completely schooled me, because he was like, obviously I know what that is, but he was like, she went into the weeds on every single thing that they do and every single thing that their duty is. And so these are very smart young people that are excited about running. And we're like, when you're 18, we're gonna run for something. But
call us and we'll help you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But so we've just had a wide variety of these young people, that have been applying from across the country in 48 different states that are wanting to make a difference in their community.
That's phenomenal. And Joe, no project, no founding of an organization, the risks don't go unnoticed. What challenges did you have along the way that you can articulate today to help us understand that you went to college, you graduated, you ran for political office, you won, and then you started this phenomenal organization to recruit more young people to replenish this political power. What challenges did you face along the way?
Yeah. Well, it started out, number one, I knew I had to form a diverse coalition of these young elected officials that would want to join this journey to recruit more young people to run for office. And so that's when I contacted Josie Tomcount, Amber Mariano, two young state legislators from Florida, obviously both women. I contacted Caleb Hanna from West Virginia, like I just said. Caleb, again, youngest African American ever elected to a state office in the United States of America's history, right? And then Joe Alexander, who's an openly gay Republican in New Hampshire. But I had to put together this diverse group of young elected officials that cared about the future of our country, but cared about bringing in young elected officials that were also diverse. We didn't have any results yet, right? We just said, hey, we're these young elected officials and we're trying to grow this organization to duplicate what we've done. And so, being able, to get those first couple of dollars in the door from these very supportive donors we now have was very important to what we're doing, to what the mission is. Now we've raised close to $250,000 in the last 6 months.
Congratulations.
And so that's all grassroots,
small dollar donations.
Small dollar donations, not six-figure donations that we've got. And so it's just been a blessing to see this organization, how it's been able to grow, and how willingly people across this country are to support this effort.
Well, there's nothing greater I'd love to see than a young professional who's getting out there, taking risks, and creating new ideas and organizations that young people, and I refer to anybody who's young as 40 and lower, because 40 is the new 21.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And that's just fantastic. And, Joe, one thing I ask everybody who comes on the show is a pretty simple question, but it can be complicated, maybe even in your situation, is what does freedom mean to you?
Well, Austin, that's a great question. And I think, the first thing that comes to mind is our great country of America, right? And the idea that, America is, the beacon on a hill for so many people around the world that have immigrated here, right? Folks don't, leave America to get their healthcare somewhere else, or leave America to get their education somewhere else, or start a business somewhere else, or start a family somewhere else. People all over the world try to come here to do that. And I think that's the reason why our country is so great, and why I love our country, is because we are the definition of freedom.
Well, Joe, thanks so much for joining us today, and congratulations on starting a phenomenal organization, Run Gen Z. For those tuning in, where can we find you?
Okay, well, Austin, first of all, thank you for having me on the show today.
Absolutely.
We're on all different forms of social media platforms. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. So our handles are @RunGenZ. On Instagram is @run.genz, and then our website is www.rungenz.com.
Excellent. Well, for any of you young public servants out there looking to get into office, or even learn more about how to run for office and campaign, Contact Joe Mitchell at Run Gen Z to learn more. I'm Austin Jack with Brewing Business. Thanks for joining us today.